Everybody looks so ready for action.
We are. Let's go. Let's run.
Good, man.
This is amazing. I just want to say officially thank you. You guys and girl, you are amazing. Obviously, I know you, and I do consider it a privilege and an honor to actually have this conversation with you. I do feel and I'm convinced that you all have significant experience, and I think it will will contribute to the conversation we want to have. So for those who are checking in, the purpose of this is to have a conversation. I realize that in South Africa and even in the world, there's a lack of father figures. In South Africa, 74% of homes are without a dad. Our divorce rates are high. The amount of domestic violence is ridiculous. And I'm not qualified to do this, but I'm just being obedient as a Christian guy. And I felt like it's good to have a conversation. So why not? So to introduce my guest, I'll introduce them, and then maybe you can introduce yourself even better. So I got Lizna Kriel. Lizna is obviously not a man, but she's married to a great guy, Amir, and she has an amazing dad. And I think we'll hear more about her relationship with the dad. They have three daughters, Narina, Lisa, and Emma. And they are part of an incredible church. They lead families. She's a kids pastor. Yeah, so that's just Lizna in a nutshell. So Jerome is a lecturer. He's a world traveler. He's a very good friend. He's one of those guys I look up, and he's doing phenomenal work within the community, but also abroad, obviously, as a lecturer. So it's good to have you on board. Jerome has 3 kids also, a son, Joshua, Mika, and Mia. Yes.
Yes,
Got it right.
that's correct.
Yeah. The Mika and Mia, they're very close to each other. And then Dieter
I can't even get it right, so well done to you.
So for those who don't know, Dieter, he's a world-renowned coach. So you would know him, know which athletes doing well. He coaches a bunch of athletes that perform exceptionally well. But he's passionate about community. He's a great husband, and he has 2 kids, Daniel and Majan. Majan? Did I pronounce it right?
Yes, all good. Close enough. Well done.
And Daniel's birthday today.
Yeah.
So that's very exciting. That is very exciting. So I was thinking maybe we'll start off with maybe introducing yourself a little. And I was thinking, because the focus is we want to speak specifically to dads. It could be biological dad, it could be spiritual dads, it could be mentor dads, it could be kids of dads, it could be women married to dads. So the conversation is actually for everybody. But I was thinking maybe you introduce yourself a bit better and then just share about your relationship with your dad specifically, and then we'll take it from there. I was thinking, seeing that Lizna logged on first, maybe we'll just have a go.
Thank you, Bjorn. Yeah, so like Bjorn said, my name is Lizna, and I am married and a mom of 3, but I have an amazing dad. I'm actually the oldest of 5 girls, so we're literally a handful. I just had to put a dad joke in there just to honor this moment. But yeah, so I grew up in Stellenbosch, and the way that my parents raised me was in some ways very different to some of my friends during the times that we were raised in. And yeah, I have an amazing relationship with my dad. He is someone that would be the first one to say that he is not perfect. And I think that helps the relationship in terms of daughter and father and expectations and all of that. But I'm also married to an amazing man, Renir, and he is a phenomenal dad of our 3 girls. And he definitely would see his role as father as one of the biggest roles if he has to introduce himself. So I am a mom but I'm also looking after children in our kids ministry and friends' children. They tend to end up somewhere in my house or surroundings and so forth. But it's amazing to also just open our homes to children, and having a near part of that journey as a father figure is a phenomenal privilege. Yeah, so that's just me a little bit in a nutshell.
That's awesome. Thank you very much. Dieter, do you mind sharing a little bit?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Okay. So my name is Dieter. I'm a father of two. My oldest, Jean, she's 11 now. My son he turned 7 today. So yeah, it's a great honor and privilege. But even before that, I always felt like there was a longing in my heart to be a father, a dad. From a young age, I was involved in kids ministry and also as a teacher, taught for 10 years. So I've always had some sort of a father figure role, and also had a lot of strong father figures in my life. My dad passed away 6 years ago, but he had a very strong, influential impact in my life. He definitely wasn't a perfect father, and he would be the first to admit that, as I would be. I would also like to admit that I have so much to learn, and I'm still learning every single day. But I'm definitely imperfect, but I'm failing forward. So I'm excited about the future, excited about being involved in kids' lives. Yeah, from a young age, I really just had the opportunity to learn so much. I had a few youth ministers, pastors that had a big role in my life, and since then I just realized you need some really strong mentors in your life. And I would like to be a mentor. Yeah, I'm turning 45 this year, and I just realized that yeah, so much to learn still.
Sorry, I couldn't hear the last sentence.
You broke up a little on the last sentence.
Yes.
Come out next. No, it's just amazing to be part of this journey and to be able to live in this time as we are now. You never know what's coming. We came all from different paths, and it's just exciting what's going to happen in the future, and to be part of that.
That is amazing. That is amazing. So Jerome, do you mind introducing and sharing a little?
Yes, as you all know, my name is Jerome Peter Boo Fredericks. Yes, those are all my names. I'm also a dad of 3 children, and being a dad is really hard work. It comes with challenges, but I think what is important for me as a dad is not what I give my kids or provide my kids, but it's more about what I learn or teach my kids.
Yeah.
I think that is very important. I think if I look personally about my own dad, was it that I've grown up without the father, but I still love my father very much. I think that is one thing which my mother taught us. Although me and my dad was separated, she will always spoke good about my dad. Yeah. And she will always let me feel that my dad is my hero. Yeah. So I know there are a lot of broken families. I know there are also not ideal situations. But what I've learned in life is that everything has a meaning and a purpose. Yeah. And today I am in youth work, and I think 90% of the youngsters come out of broken families. And I am so prepared to engage with those youngsters because I can reflect on my own personal life, but also explain to them the challenges which I had to overcome or navigate to be the man who I am today. But there's only one thing which I also need to mention is that I think if you look at our Heavenly Father, I think He is the main dad of all the dads.
Yeah.
And if you have Him, your God, and as your Heavenly Father, then you will know what is your purpose and your meaning in life for your own kids, but also for other people's kids. So that is my introduction. Thank you.
That is awesome. No, thank you very much. That's very good. I was just thinking, and you touched on something very good there, Jerome. Obviously, we are all Christian, we're all theists. So I was actually thinking two things, especially for the guys. I want to ask, having the relationship you had with your dad and having the influence of different mentors, did that influence your relationship with God, or how did that influence your relationship with God when you started out as a young Christian? And for listeners specifically, having a dad that was so loving and doing a lot of things well, did that play a part in the way you selected your man? Because I know Renier is a solid guy, like he's driven, he loves his family. But would you say that played a significant part? And if it did, how did it play a part, specifically when he came to you as a couple? So I don't know, maybe if the guys want to share a little bit about how you relate to Jesus when you became a Christian, based on your relationship maybe with your earthly father or mentors or stepdad or whatever men was in your world. That would be great.
The wise man can first go. I will follow after him.
Who's that? Is that me?
It's you.
I'm dark. I'm really dark. Okay, now I'll go. I was lucky. I was really blessed having a father that was also a believer and a follower of Jesus. So he definitely set a good, I just want to say a good example, but in the process, obviously it's not perfect. So my first impression of what God would be like and what Jesus would be like is probably something that I got in our house, in home, and also in church, because they brought me up in a church environment. But even though I had positive, good exposure, I realized when I first met Jesus that it was not 100% who Jesus was. And I'm still learning more about the Father's heart and exactly who Jesus is and who God is to me. So even though I had a decent example, it's not even close to perfect, and I'm still learning. And there's just no way that I can shine that type of light if I'm not in close contact with him. So I'm still learning. I definitely, for me, it had a positive impact. I've read Floyd McClunk's book, For the Heart of God, which really had a big impact on my life, and I learned a lot from that. And I also realized that it's, even though I've got a specific point of view that is influenced by a lot of people that's spoken into my life over a long time. But it's what he means, is it a perfect view? And I just realized, and I feel it as almost a commitment I need to have, that one of my friends once challenged me. He said one day when his kids look up to him and they ask him, these mistakes you're making, are you making these mistakes because your dad made those mistakes in your life, or are they new mistakes? And that is something I took, as a young man, I took to heart and realized that if I'm going to be a good dad, or aim to be a good one, I'm going to have to make sure that the imprint that my dad made in my life, that those are pure. And if it isn't, I can't, if it's not a positive thing, I can't translate it to the next generation. So something I need to sort out and make sure I'm healed and I'm fully recovered from whatever could have injured me or had a negative impact on my life. And if I don't, I'm going to not be a good dad. So that's one of the things I realized from a young age that I need to sort out.
Yeah, that's very good. Thank you very much. That's a good question. I like that question. That's very good. Jerome, do you mind sharing how your relationship got influenced by your dad or mentors?
Yes. Basically, what my mentor was that my grandfather was my, well, how can I put it? Yes, my grandfather, he was my father, if I can put it like that.
He was
I think it's the reason why we called him grandfathers, because they are very grand. And I think what was important for him was values or attributes. I think he was that type of person that values was everything for him. I think it was because of his isiXhosa culture. As you know, with isiXhosa culture, it's a lot to do with respect, with discipline. There's just a way of doing things. There's a way how you behave. There's a way how you conduct yourself. There's a way how you need to behave in society with your family. The other thing with my grandfather is that it was important for him that I should attend Sunday school. And now that I'm older and reflect more on it, I realize why it was important for him that I had to come home every Sunday. Then I need to explain to him what the Sunday school lesson was all about. And I think that was his way to make sure that I go to Sunday school, but I listen to the word of God.
Yeah, that's good.
And I think by doing that, that started to develop my public speaking skills, to know how to communicate with people, but also to make sure that I am able to carry a message over to the next person. Then he instructed me that I need to get more involved in church activity. And I have become the youth leader. And while being a youth leader, then you work more closely with pastors. And then these pastors become my spiritual mentors. And it's very interesting about life. If you ask people what are your interests, your interest will only happen or establish depending on the people who influence you.
Yeah.
So I personally believe the 5 people with who you surround yourself are sometimes the people which will infect you the most of the time.
Yeah.
And sometimes you will make life decisions based on what those people have invested in you. So in my case, I'm very thankful and grateful that there were a lot of spiritual pastors who invested in me, with who I was able to work with, but also how to handle challenges in life, about yourself, but also how to conduct you. And I think these were the things which was laid the foundation for me so that I can become the man who I am today. And I think this is so important that we can have different mentors, different spiritual fathers, and different fathers. But I think the Lord puts these people out there so that they can assist and guide you so that you can become the man or the father you are intended to be.
Yeah.
And I think I just want to say that thing based on the question which you have asked.
Oh, that's good. Thank you very much. Thank you. Lizna?
Sure. So to answer your
So
question,
remember my question.
yes, I do. To answer your question, I think one of the greatest gifts that a father can give their children, besides love, is obviously in my perspective, I'm a Christian, so my faith is the most important thing that I have, and the fact that my father pointed me to Jesus, I think that was the greatest gift that he gave me. But also second to that is that he always treated me with respect. So there were clear boundaries. For instance, they would never say no if they didn't give us a good reason. So the answer would always be yes. And so we would trust their judgment. As children, we would trust our parents' judgment. And also, one of the things that my dad always made me feel, and still is, he makes me feel safe. And he gives me that, almost want to say, constant reassurance, but not necessarily in an unhealthy need approval all the time kind of way, but more just a quiet confidence that you know that he's got your back. And I think that was one of the things when I looked. So I had previous relationships before I met my husband, and I think initially when I was like, okay, I'm now getting a bit older and I need to maybe just like, who am I actually spending my time with, and what do I want in a husband? And the first thing that resonated with me, and I must be honest, it was a bit of a joke eventually between my husband and I, because the first thing that I felt with my husband wasn't in love. It was actually, I felt safe. And I knew that that was the way that God spoke to my heart, saying that this man is the man that that I'm going to be with and fall in love with. So the safety aspect, the respect aspect came way before the falling in love aspect. And I think for me, God knew that was what I was going to need, but it resonated also with the characteristics that I saw in my own dad, and as a man, like my idea of what a respectful, healthy man, confident in himself, would look like. Now, my dad, in this conversation, if he would see this, he would be the first one to go, listen, you're putting me on a pedestal. I'm not that, like, don't do that. He would be the first to I think that humility helps, because in our faith, we do believe that God works everything together for my good. So even if your family, even if your parents are broken or make mistakes or whatever, because you're a child of God, it will work to the benefit of your faith, like of your life. And I've seen that with me and Renee as well. There's obviously things that that I am broken and I need to work on, but I can see again in my own children and also with Renee, like with his relationship with his daughters, like we are standing on the faith of our parents. And I think that is something that we will always be thankful for. Also my dad, there were certain non-negotiables in terms of Saturday nights we would never sleep over anywhere because Sunday morning is church. My dad would open the Bible and do Bible study, and I would see that that's important, even though we never spoke about it, that in a household that is how it's supposed to be. It was shown rather than spoken about. And they say that the biggest preach, or the most important sermon that you can make and doesn't need any words. And I think that was the testimony to that. Now, Renier, my husband, is sitting and doing in the morning, like he's doing his quiet time. And I can see how that is almost like passed on to our kids. So our daughters can look to that and say, okay, but that is what we do. We do our quiet time with the Lord. We do treat people with respect. We do show up and take people's hands and be there in a crisis, because that is something that was instilled as I also grew up.
Yeah, that's so good. So all this wisdom shared, I think we should write a book after this. There's enough to write a book. But I was thinking, one of the challenges for a lot of men is that men tend to chase platforms. They tend to feel the bigger the platform, the greater the thing. But I want to ask Dieter this specifically, because Dieter, you were Mr. South Africa 2009. You were the face of South Africa. You were a TV presenter, Pasala, national TV, everybody knew you. But then you're also a dad. So a lot of people would love to have, and also obviously you're coaching, you get to influence a smaller group of people, and it's not a national television. Like, how do you navigate that? Has it ever been a challenge? Have you struggled with that as a man or as a dad? Because I just feel like sometimes I've noticed that a lot of men tend to chase the big platform. Because I know all of us have different platforms, but I was thinking maybe with you specifically, is it any wisdom you can share from your experience with that?
It's still a work in progress. So I don't have all the info yet. I'm still learning. But I had a really nice conversation with my daughter tonight. She's, like I said earlier, she's 11. And I asked her, so a while ago, she said she wants to become an actress. And I said, but why? So now she wants to move to America and she wants a bigger platform, and then everybody would know her and they could see what good is inside of her. I said, but why do you need a bigger platform? And at 11, I thought, wow. But when I was 10, I started dreaming this huge dream of having a big platform, being on TV. And it's actually quite funny, but I used to walk around in the house and I would pretend everybody's looking at me. There would be cameras all around me, like Big Brother used to be. But so those are some of the things that went through my mind. And looking back, like I honestly say, we can really back and to see where you come from and where we're heading. And I just realized I always had this goal to have this huge platform without really knowing what it's going to take, what sacrifices you have to make, the compromises you're going to have to take to get to that point. And so at this stage in my life where I almost want to call it halftime, I realized all of that was something obviously that God put in my heart, and there was something positive about it. But if I have to be completely sincere and honest about it, I probably chose that route for the wrong reasons. And it's only in hindsight that I can say, okay, this is what happened. I didn't really utilize it. I always said I'm going to use it as God's platform. And now looking back, it was so selfish. A lot of those ideas and dreams and visions that I had wasn't really about God. So nowadays I look at it slightly different. And I realize that the platform, if I can't really change the world. If I can be as close as possible to God, and I can influence my wife and my kids, that's a huge platform in itself. If I can get that right, that's awesome. That's mission accomplished. The rest is just a bonus. But in the process, if you're walking with God and you are dropping your shadow as you go, people will interact, and they will find, and I hope and pray that they will find a piece of Him during that journey. But as I grow older, I realize that the big platform is not really all that necessary. It's amazing you can use a phone like this and you can speak to 1 million people. So you don't really need that big platform. It's not about that. It's more about walking the talk.
Yeah, that's very good. Thank you, Ditya. That's very, very good. Well done. I know, Jerome, so you are obviously lecturer at University of Stellenbosch. I always say, to me, you are the face of Stellenbosch University. But you grew up in an impoverished community in Park East. Obviously, with your background, there were many challenges to get to where you are today. You get to lecture at universities around the world. You're a household name actually at big universities, but yet you still chose to build a big house in your community still. You are financially blessed to live outside of your community, but I know that you are a big community leader. Do you mind sharing more around that? Because I know there's this big thing where people always want to leave a community, and I'm like, whatever you choose, I'm out of my community, but you intentionally chose to be in your community, and I know we've spoken about this, to be an example, to be a beacon of hope. Do you mind sharing a little bit around that?
But of course, I will share with you. But first of all, I must say I'm very honored to have my face next to Mr. South Africa. Mr. South Africa. It feels almost like I was the runner-up now.
Yes, you're runner-up. You're number 2.
I'm honored sitting next to a lecturer.
Feeling now.
Very small.
You mustn't also talk so much about my finances. I just get the feeling that tomorrow a lot of people will be taking loans here at my house.
Hulle gaan met die hek kom staan, nie stukkie brood nie. Hulle gaan sê stukkie geld.
You never know. But when you have to bless, you have to bless. I think it's a very good question you ask. I think we always have this saying that you can take a person out of a community, but you can't take the community out of that person. Yeah. Now, I come from Lantana, which is obviously a marginalized community. And it is also funny that people don't want to be associated with marginalized communities. I think also biblical, where people was asking, can something good come out of Nazareth? Yeah. And I think the answer was clearly that Jesus Christ was born in Nazareth. And people also didn't want to be associated with Nazareth because of what it was. And I think to answer your question is that I think our people need role models. I think our people need to understand that in some cases it's not the environment which determines where you will end, but it's more about what Christ can do in your life. Yeah. And I think, and to survive that, you need to have the Lord in your life. It's very hard work, but with God, all things are possible. Yeah. I know we all have dreams, we all have desires, and things are not going to fall out of the sky. And the Lord make it explicit that delight yourself in the work of the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your hearts. And from childhood, I always had these visualization where I am going to travel overseas. I'm going to make these impacts. I want to be in academics. I want to qualify as these high academic titles. And the Lord was really faithful for me in providing these wonderful opportunities for me. And you were also talking about the platforms, is that I take on these platforms because I can be a voice for those who don't have a voice.
Yeah.
I can become an activist to do research, but also to make other people's lives better. And I think that is the platform the Lord provided me to provide hope, to inspire, but also to be a symbol of hope for so many youngsters who also have a dream. And by looking at me, I don't say I'm perfect, I don't say I'm now this person, but it's more about like, if I can do it with the little, with my difficult circumstances, with my background, then I want to inspire other youngsters, then you can even do much better and go much further in life. And I think sometimes when our youngsters don't have these positive role models living around them, among them, it's very difficult to say, but listen here, I also want to achieve. I also want to be someone in life. And I think one day Peter de Villiers had mentioned something so profound when he was appointed as the Springbok coach. Then I think somebody gave him an offer to have like a very expensive house somewhere in Cape Town. But then he told the person that I'm not interested, because the neighbors who are staying next to me, they can also have that privilege and that saying to say that I'm staying next to the Springbok coach of South Africa. And I think if we can come back to our marginalized communities or where we come from, and we start to invest and make a positive change there, just think how more academics can come out of this environment. Yeah. How many more people with so much potential can achieve if people just so believe in them, understanding they be a good mentor and just influence. And I think that is the main reason why I decided to stay in this particular community. Because while I'm looking here outside this window, not far from here, is a shop, Aesop's. Yes. And like in my children years, I was standing on those corners begging for money. And today I can look from my double-story house, and it's not about the double-story house, but with what the Lord has blessed me, and can see there. Many years ago, I was standing on street corners. Today, I'm going to all the corners of the world for what the Lord has done in my life.
That is amazing. Yeah, that's so good. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you for
something. We got the second book already going. We're writing books.
But I still wanted to be Mr. South Africa.
You runner up, you know.
First
close,
runner up, eh? You're the first runner up.
Yeah. We'll get you that thing. What do they call it? Is it the bum? What?
Sash. Yeah.
Sash. Oh.
Sash. I'll make him one.
Yes. All the listeners have heard that. I'm looking forward. My address
is 15 people watching.
We can do a show there in Lantana, Opistupa.
Yes, why not? But yeah, I am Mr. Lantana.
Mr. Lantana, there we go.
So, for those who don't know, Dieter actually used to be a teacher also. He was the vice principal at Klein Gym.
What?
So he's a man of many many outfits. But listen, I want to ask you, so obviously you were blessed with an incredible dad that influenced you to to live a significant life. And obviously you and your husband together, you have significant influence within your church community. And I'm just thinking, for you, they get to influence the next generation. Like, that is a huge privilege, especially as a Christian. And I know you studied theology and you're still studying theology, so you would understand the magnitude of that responsibility. Like, talk to us maybe around that. Like, why do you commit to investing into the next generation? Because many men become so focused, and from what I've observed, on their family, like building their little clan, building their little house. And I don't think it's entirely wrong. I just, in my opinion, we tend to disagree. It's not always the healthiest thing to only focus on your family. But I'm just asking you, why would you throw your weight and energy and resources into investing into kids like mine?
It's easy to invest into your kids, Bjorn. I love your children. They are amazing. And also to see them grow up and to be on that journey with them. Actually, what's so funny is that, Dieter, I think I was in grade 11 and you actually took a primary school to a church camp. And I was a grade 11 leader. I think it was then Claremont or something, but I remember your facial expression after you climbed out of that minibus taxi. And I could see as a teacher, I was also a teacher before I became a kids pastor. And for me, the saying is literally, it takes a village to raise a child. So what does that practically mean? I think in our society today, we are so accustomed to just build in silos. You don't know your neighbors anymore. You don't know what's happening down the street. And I think that really became evident in the past couple of years with the times that we've had. And for me, since I was 10 years old, I wanted to do three things. I wanted to sing, I wanted to have my own orphanage, and I wanted to be a teacher. So that was the three things that I wanted to do. And I actually, in some way, God used that. And that's actually what I'm still doing. But what's happening is that God told me a couple of years ago, it's like, I need to open my front door. I can, if I want to have, let's say, better living circumstances or whatever, I can just be living in better circumstances, but still with a closed front door. And the more we open our home, the more we open our lives, the more we invite people into our world, the more we also get to speak into others' world. And actually, so obviously I'm from a church background, and words that we normally use, like being the church, like midweek, like opening your homes to people. And for me, I must be honest, it was a stretch because I am a very private person, but I think the Lord allowed me to come to the end of myself where I really needed a community. And in our case, we were fortunate to have a church community that invested into our lives in a time that we were, like Renita and I were going through a tough time, just with circumstances and so forth. And Renita and I, yes, we were in the midst of it, but we had a whole community that rallied around us. Our kids were very sick, and we really needed community to help in those times. So taking all of that into account, by investing into children, the responsibility is immense because kids trust you, and therefore they trust easily, and we don't take that lightly. So in those circles, we have friends with single parent households, and we just keep on reminding them that bring them into a household or into environments where they can see where there's dads and moms investing into them in a broader scale that can actually be people that will hold the parents' arms up when they feel tired, and when they don't know how to, let's say, help their child with this, or their marriage might be struggling, or financially it might be a stretch. And something that I have seen, what trips a lot of families up is that dads really, yes, financially, there's a sense of provision and providing that they need to do, but it is financial, but it's also emotional and spiritual, and sometimes because of the burden of the financial provision in many cases the father, not in all households, definitely, and times have changed completely, but in many cases, there is the sense of financial provision with identity that goes together to actually speak life into those situations where dads can step up and where dads can be emotionally there and be spiritually there, but it takes a village. You can't be everything to everyone. And if you want to keep all those balls in the air, you need people that can rally around you. So I think because we realize that is something that we need, we also realize our part in it and investing into children specifically, because like one of the things, as my dad said, the first 7 years of a child's life is the most important. And if you get to take those first 7 years and be there with children and invest into them, they will always revert back to that. And I think that is the beauty of being a village for someone and allowing people also to be the village for you. So my own dad, his father passed away when he was young, but his dad was there for the formative years of his life, and therefore he had an example to build on, and that was the way that he raised us. And I think we just basically taken the baton on from him and paying that forward to the next group of kids that are coming in.
Yeah, that's very good. That's very good. I like that. I must listen very closely because it's storming here in Paul. I just hope that the river's flowing quickly. So if you see me swimming, then it just means the river has rised up. I don't have a double story like Jerome, so I'm at the bottom. So I was thinking that could be like a closing question, and if the listeners have any questions, it'll be great if they ask any questions. But I was thinking, advice. Any advice to younger you, before you got kids, or advice to yourself when you're 50, like older dad you. Do you have any advice to younger version you or older version you? That would be the advice. And I think even Lizna, I think as a daughter there would have been challenges with your dad because he wouldn't have been perfect. So even in your teenage years, obviously you wouldn't have rebelled that much, only a little bit. but in that little phase of rebellion, obviously you would go through emotional challenges, and I don't know if there's any young girls out here that might have challenges with their dads. Maybe there's some young dads here or guys, maybe they're pregnant and they might become dads very soon. But I was thinking it might be good just to share some advice to the younger versions of us, just to give some encouragement, and just maybe share from your experience how you've navigated situations. In closing.
Yeah, I'll start. Just one or two ideas from my side, or 2 or 3 words from my side. I think I'm used to, me and my brothers, we used to sit around the table and say, oh, we wish our dad wasn't as, I almost want to say absent, in a way that he was focused on providing for us. And we wish he was more present while he was with us. It's almost like he was always thinking about his work, even though he was spending time with us. And nowadays with the phone, I catch myself being with my kids but not being present. So if I have to give myself advice, it would be more present. I spoke to one of my clients in gym this morning, and I asked him, because him and his dad, they're training together. He's still young, he's in his 20s, and he started working now, and his dad is a bit older. And I asked him, so why do you guys have such a cool relationship? He says, because his dad is he's like a high flyer financial guy. He said, when my dad came home after 6 every night, we used to have something that they called the garden games. And then they'd play for an hour just playing. And he could make up the rules. He could say what they're doing. And he said that is still to this day. They go on hikes and they do all these cool fishing trips and hiking trips and stuff. And it's because of the relationship that was built during that stage. So to be present, to be real. We live in a society, Instagram life, where we just try to be someone which we're not, to be real. And I constantly tell me, as a male, it's a different way of showing your love. And I need to constantly remind me of just love. It might be in my, I just want to say, broken way. But if I can share love wherever I go with my family, with my kids, then I get really close to the heart of God. So yeah, basically be present, be real, and love.
That's very good. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dithan. Mr. South Africa. Next up is the
next.
You are the runner-up. You have to go next.
Yes, let me go next. I think let the lady speak to my last wise words because I also want to listen. I think if I can go next, I think also just what the previous presenter mentioned, that I think it's all about love. I think the other thing is like you as a dad needs to be approachable. You need to be friendly, but you need to be there for your children. I think what is important for me is, as a dad, is that children should know that they can come at any time towards me. I've learned that, and this is one of the research which have come out, that children will never discuss sometimes their vulnerability and their problems with you because they know how you are going to react. And sometimes it is their way of protecting you as a father because they know how you are going to behave. And because they know you're going to get mad, they will rather just stay quiet. And that is their way of protecting you. I think advice which I want to give for any dads is that every dad is unique. What is going to happen or work for me is not necessarily going to happen for the next dad. I think also it is not what you give, how expensive the clothes, the lifestyle is, but is what you teach that person. Because I have realized that I'm not going to live forever here on earth. And my job is to get my kids as independent as possible, but also most important that they can also serve Jesus Christ at the end of the day, which is for me like the best outcome.
Yeah.
And I think also that the legacy is more like if I'm not going to be there anymore, or my children is going to be grown up, and I have to ask them, like, how would you remember your dad, and what is that child going to say? Because at the end of the day, I want my kids to say, but listen here, my father was there for me. He loved us. He took care of us. And what I am establishing for them is hopefully that they will carry that over to the next generation. So what I am thankful is that my mentors, my grandfather, they've laid to me the foundation to build on. And I think for any father is that the next generation should be better than you. The next generation should serve the Lord with more eagerness, with more resilience. And I think that is for me the most important thing. Because I think sometimes we need to shift our focus of life. It is not about gathering all these materialistic things. Because I personally believe a blessed man is a person who is under authority and in authority. And those are the things which is important for me. Sometimes when I also want to handle conflict or problems, I will call my kids in and then I will ask them, how do you think should we handle the situation? And I think sometimes what is the best discipline for my kids is when I put them around a table and then I ask them or instruct them, now you give each one a compliment here around this table. That is torturing for them. It's almost like they can see all this bad of one and another. And they can't give a compliment to their sibling or to the next sibling. And I think what is important for me is that a happy dad creates a happy family. And a happy family creates a happy community. And I just want to leave it there.
That's awesome. Thank you very much, Jerome. That was so good. Thank you very much. So now after the runner-up, can we have the queen share some?
But of course, but of course.
Give the girl a crown.
Yeah, just from thank you, Bjorn. Oh, my, yeah, thank you so much for this opportunity just to speak on this. And yeah, I think just my closing thoughts on this is that I want to commend my mom for keeping the crown on my dad's head. And I think as the oldest of 5 girls, me and my youngest sibling, we differ 13 years. So we actually grew up in different households in that regard, because a 26-year-old dad and an almost 40-year-old dad is 2 different dads. But my mom always kept the crown on my dad's head. So even though they might have had the conflict or the situations or whatever, she would always respect him. And I think that mirrored for me like how to treat my husband in front of my children. I don't always get it right. Definitely not. I'm a work in progress. But to keep the crown on my husband's head, I think that it's the biggest gift that you can give your children. Don't make adult problems children's problems.
Yes.
And then to take it a step further, like to the teenage daughter, I want to say, like, I understand that you might feel disappointed when your parents disappoint you or your dad disappoints you, but it's actually by loving him while he does, and him loving you while you disappoint him, and maybe your expectations are not met, just by really working on having unconditional love. I think that loving through your brokenness would really cement and help you to have a real authentic relationship. To the young dad, I want to say the fact that you are trying, the fact that you are trying to be there, even though you don't know how to, that's 90% of the battle won. You don't have to have the answers, but the fact that you want to try, that is already showing love, and that is already like something that would help that child feel loved. You don't have to be the perfect father. You just have to be their father. And then to just in general, I think in terms of fatherhood is that it's a privilege and it's an honor to see someone journey through fatherhood and wrestle with all the different things that they're carrying, but to surround yourself with healthy voices. Now, for instance, at our church here in Stellenbosch, we to have that healthy communities to where you can say, I'm struggling with this and I don't know that, or to be real. Otherwise, we're just a glorified club, and that's just going to be strange. So rather to be real and to speak towards that, I think would really just lift the burden that we all feel as parents. And also, if someone speaks into my husband's life, it helps me that I don't have to have all the answers. If somebody tells him that he needs to do this or like support him in that helps me. So yeah, just real men having real conversations. I think that would be amazing. Yeah.
That is awesome. Wow. This was so good. Whew. This was really good. It went better than I expected. So it's a good thing. Wow. I just do want to say it is really an honor and privilege to have you on this platform. I think your vulnerability and authenticity is rare. That is the challenge we have in our communities, is that we don't have people who are authentic enough. So there are not many men out there for other men to relate to, because we're always perfect on social media. We always show only when the pics are popping, when the mountain is high. Those are the only times we post stuff on social media. But I do want to thank you for your authenticity and your willingness to actually share from your own story. I'm convinced it's going to help a lot of people, and it definitely helped me. Like, I've gained a lot of insight and a lot of encouragement from this, even as a dad to a daughter. It was just so encouraging to know that I can raise a daughter who's going to marry a great man one day. He's going to be great. Because if it's not, I'm going to drop him off in the ghetto. And Lantana too.
Yeah. Don't worry, we'll check out their future husband.
But it was really amazing. So I'm looking forward to this platform, to doing it week in, week out, and talk about different topics. And I might call you sometimes to gain some insight, and maybe pop on here again. So yeah, I just want to say thank you very much. So the plan is
thank you, Bjorn. You were amazing, and just the privilege of speaking on this and actually being intentional to do this. Well done. And I think I'm excited to see where this leads. So yes, it's a seed that's planted tonight, but I think watch the space.
Yes, watch the space.
Well done, Bjorn. Super excited for the future for you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I appreciate all of you. Have a blessed evening. See you.
You too.
You too. Okay, bye-bye, guys.